Hey guys, welcome back to Franchise Tag. Today we are going to be going over the combine winners from this week. A lot of people doing winners and losers. We don't want to be negative, so we're just keeping it to the winners, the players that really boosted their draft stock this weekend. A couple different reasons for that, and we'll go over it obviously individual player by player, but some of them whether they tested medically well, some of them whether they tested physically well, and everything in between. So to kick things off, Michael Penix Jr., I feel like he kind of solidified himself, if nothing else, because everybody knew he was going to throw well. He's always had a tight spiral. He's always had a really nice throwing motion. So he showed that, and then he was medically cleared as well, which is his biggest question mark. His biggest red flag was his medicals, and he passed those. So he has solidified himself as solid.
You missed the one kind of test. You went through all the other ones. You said physically. He tested mentally well because there was the reports coming out that he was interviewing very well with all of the teams.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I think the fact that the top three of the group kind of opted out of any drills, any throwing, really kind of just helped him solidify his spot, help him get a shot to stand out more than guys who didn't choose to come out and stand out. Next up was a running back, Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. He ran a 4.38 40, had an 11-foot 2-inch broad jump, and he tested very well. I think that with the Tennessee kind of offense, it's always difficult to kind of gauge those guys. So just seeing the raw speed, seeing them in drills, bare bones without like the offense around him helps. But I think we have another name that's might be a little bit more important. Got a little bigger boost out of
Yeah.
this.
The running back class was kind of low key before the combine. And then I think at the combine, a couple guys really separated their names. And obviously, I think before it was probably Blake Corum was the only guy that anybody knew, really.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, avid college football watchers, you know all the names. But I think that the main name was Blake Corum.
Yeah,
And
the guy who won in the Natty after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think now it's the Louisville running back, Isaac Guerendo. He weighed in at 221. He's 6 foot 221, ran a 4.3340, which is one of the faster ones of the entire combine. Had a 41.5-inch vertical jump, and he had the best athleticism score of any running back this year at the entire combine. And obviously, you've got running backs running fast every year that boost their draft stock. Guys like Devon Achane really bumped his stock up a lot and got his name on a lot of people's radar. And he still fell a little bit, but he got a big shot in the NFL. And I think Guerendo is going to be a big name to watch come draft time, just because of his explosiveness at his size as well.
Yeah.
And then another name, LSU's Brian Thomas Jr. He was kind of floating around that like mid to late first round. And I think rather than really boosting his stock, he's not touching the top three, but nobody ever was. I think he and Adonai, who's we're going to talk about in a second, really just kind of solidified themselves as more of the mid first instead of late first talent. He measured in at 6'3", 209 and ran a 4.33. So taller than Guerendo, a little bit lighter, but ran the same 40. And a 4.33 at 209 pounds for a receiver is insane. So I think he really just like athletically put himself a bar above the rest.
Yeah, I think that they solidified themselves. Adonai Mitchell, who I'm gonna be touching on in just a second, is him and Brian Thomas both kind of solidified their spot because there wasn't an inkling that they're not going to test bad, but no one expected them to test this good. I think that's kind of like the news I've been seeing where they've boosted their stock more so in the fact of like, oh, they're doing that, as opposed to a more like low-key performance kind of being middle of the pack. But Adonai Mitchell, he looked great at the drills. His routes just always looked fluid. He was always catching the ball really well, same as I saw on tape. And then he, coupled that with a 4.34 40 and had the best broad jump of any of the wide receivers with an 11-foot 4-inch freaking broad jump. And even still, he might not be the biggest riser for Texas wide receivers because Next up on this list is Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, who everyone knew he was fast. I knew he was fast. I've barely seen him. I just watched him kind of alongside Adonai tape. But, I mean, you can be fast, but fast does not mean breaking the record of the combine in the 40. I think that immediately is like, okay, he's the fastest, is just a whole bar above where he was before when people were like, oh yeah, he's fast, and had that broad thinking about it.
I also think that for those three receivers, it's not just that they tested really fast and really explosive. It's that they showed on tape throughout the year that they weren't just speed. Like Xavier Worthy, maybe a little bit more just speed, but Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas, and even Worthy a little bit showed that they were good route runners. They were good after the catch. They were good at the catch point. Like it wasn't like a John Ross where he was, pretty decent and then ran the fastest 40 ever and shot himself into the first round. It was more of like, these are good receivers, and so they're first round talents. And then they ran really, really well at the combine. So it shows off athleticism of guys who have already shown themselves to be really good players. So I think that's a little bit more important than just testing well with the speed.
And with John Ross, you were kind of making the point of like he made the 40-yard dash irrelevant, but Xavier Worthy has skills outside of it. So I think like this is like a very valid push into first round, early second kind of conversation for Worthy here. It seems very valid.
I think it'd be a little different if some guy like with a 4th round grade all of a sudden ran a 4.19 or something like that. Like I think because of John Ross, that 4th round grade guy probably wouldn't shoot up into the first round.
Yeah.
But somebody like Xavier Worthy, who is a fringe second first round talent, like probably going to go in early to mid second. Now he is probably going to go late first, early second maybe. So he's kind of just bumped himself up that little like one bracket. But speaking of physicals, Theo Johnson, the Penn State tight end, we both at least keep up with MathBomb on Twitter. He created the relative athletic score, and he posted after Theo Johnson's 40 that he had a perfect 10 and was the best tight end to ever test. And then he did more tests. I think it was the shuttle that did him in, that gave him that bumped him down to a 9.99 relative athletic score. Yeah.
Did him in.
Yeah. MathBomb said that he was like, I don't expect the 10 to stand after other testing and after official numbers come back. And it didn't, but he still scored a 9.99. And in a class where there's not really a great tight end outside of Brock Bowers, he could have just propelled himself up into the early second round. And just as a little fun fact, that relative athletic score is the second best ever in the relative athletic score history. So
is it just by tight ends, or is it just
yeah
Okay.
by tight end.
Okay, I mean 9.99 has got to tie a whole lot of people.
Yeah, I mean obviously it's the second best ever because the first best ever is 10. So
next up is Joe Alt. This is another guy who it's more solidifying. Like a lot of our guys on our list, it's not okay. This 5th rounder made himself kind of second round talk. It's really just like, okay, they did good enough for everyone to be like to not be like, oh, something bad's going down. No, he ran a 5.05. Sorry, didn't mean to disrespect you like that, Joe. 40. He had a 1.73 10-yard split and a 4.51 shuttle, which was the best for the tackles in this draft. Outside of just his pure testing numbers, I think that him testing against the other top tackles is what gives him this boost. It's not like the solidifying isn't that he tested so great he has to be the first. It's he tested good and no one else really did consistently good throughout all the testing like he did.
The other thing is that Joe Alt measured in at 6'9", 321 and ran a 5.05.
Yeah.
So the 5.05 is whatever, but 6'9", dude, like
huge. I mean, insane. Another guy here, Laiatu Latu, edge guy. tested well, but the biggest up for him is, again, like Michael Penix, medically passing the evals. He was medically retired for 2 years and then came back and played 2 seasons. So it's not like something that was at like the forefront of people's mind, you know? He's been good for the past 2 years, but having the in-depth medical exam where they kind of get into that and they know for a fact, okay, he's good. We don't need to worry about this. That brings an ease of mind to a lot of teams that will kind of like propel him up boards that he was kind of low on because they were worried about it.
Yeah. Then last name we got is Quinyon Mitchell, the DB out of Toledo. He's kind of propelled himself into CB1 talks. I still don't think he's quite there, but statistically, he's really good. And then at the combine, he tested really well. He also ran a 4.33 alongside Brian Thomas and Garendo from earlier. And then he also put up 20 reps at the bench press, which is, you know, it's not record breaking by any means, but for a corner who's clearly touted on his speed, if he's running a 4.33, to throw up 20 reps, that's pretty good. So I think he really fully inserted himself into that CB1 conversation up there with guys like Nate Wiggins, who also ran really well, but had himself a little injury there. And then Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Cooper DeJean. He's right in there with that group instead of being like a slight tier below.
Yeah. And another thing with Nate Wiggins and how he ran was he had that little injury, but he also came in a lot smaller than people were thinking he was going to come in. And with Quinyon, I mean, he propelled himself up a lot of, you know, conversations based off of his testing plus everything else. And
yeah, he weighed in at...
It feels like he's like trained. Like he was like, okay, I know I'm like corner 7 on some people's boards. All right, I'm going to be hitting all of these drills every day and just hit that hard so he could be testing the best he possibly could. And it's showing out.
He did weigh in at 6'195", Quinyon Mitchell did. So Wiggins, I think, was in the 170s.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, a lot of teams... Was it? No, Xavier Worthy was 165. I don't think anybody else was in the 160s.
Yeah.
But Xavier Worthy, for that measure, he came out and said, he was like, dog, I played at 165 all of last year. I don't know why this is a big deal now. But Nate Wiggins...
Whole new set of eyes, bro.
Yep. Nate Wiggins weighed in at 6'1", 173. So he's taller than Quinyon and 20 pounds lighter. So a little bit concerning if you want your DBs to help you in run support a little bit for some teams. So that's, I think, why Quinyon propelled himself up, because he did the same, you know, crazy fast, crazy athletic, also weighs a good amount for a corner.
Yeah. Well, I think we rambled on about our final pick here. We got no one else after this because we were just kind of wanting to tackle just a handful of the combine winners, not make it too long or drawn out for y'all. So that just about wraps this video up. Any closing remarks?
Yeah, let us know if we missed any big names, because I wasn't actively watching the combine or anything, and I'm not super in tune with the college game. I don't watch a ton of college football. I know you don't either. So if there is any big names that we should be watching for and we should pay attention to their combine tape, it's available now. We can go watch it anywhere. So just let us know, and let us know where you want some of these guys to fall, what teams you want to see them go to, and like we do in the mock drafts that we've been posting, we take viewer comments into consideration when we're making the mock drafts and when we're projecting starters and everything like that. So,
yep, much appreciated all the intel you drop. But that just about wraps up this video.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
Deuces.